Hi, my name is Mark, and today I'd like to tell you about a game called Ascendancy. Finally, I have published an unboxing video some time ago, but this game is so huge that I wanted to play it more before I tell you what I think about it. I got this game for review from the publisher One More Turn Games. Thanks for sending it. And Ascendancy is a huge 4X game in which you will explore different locations on the map, you will fight with enemies, with monsters, other players, nemesis, bosses. You will develop your kingdom, your empire, unlock new technologies, gather resources. You will do a lot of things. This game is also quite cool because you can basically adjust it to your needs. The game can be cooperative. There are scenarios in this game that give you special rules and victory conditions for different scenarios, and some of them are competitive, some are cooperative. You can play everyone, each for all, so you will fight with everyone. You can play in teams, you can play solo, of course, and you can play longer games and shorter games. You can use a PvP mode where you'll be able to fight with other players, or no PvP, so you will just fight with nemesis bosses and monsters, but not with other players. A lot of ways to play the game, but all the variants, they share the same basic rules, more or less. So now I will tell you how the game plays, and then I will tell you my opinion on Ascendancy. This is how Ascendancy looks during the game. This is not everything, because there are a few more trays that didn't fit in the frame. I will show them later when I will explain how exactly each round of the game plays and looks like, but a lot of major elements, components are here. Here we have the map. You will move on the map, you will explore different tiles. You have this stack of tiles. You will move your avatar that represents your army, your hero on the map. When you explore a new location and your avatar moves to it, you may perform a specific action of this location. Then you will be able to place settlements and expand your empire on those locations. Building new cities will give you loyalty points, and loyalty points are important because they are basically victory points in this game. There are different treasures here that you will be able to gather when you move and explore. But of course, you are not the only player that is on the map. There are also other players, and there are also nemesis, and nemesis are players controlled by the game. I will talk about them a little later. On the top we have this board, this tray where you track the decade, and this is round. This game in general is a game where you can adjust a lot of things to your preferences. Because when you start the game, you decide how many players will play the game. There is always a range, let's say from 2 to 4, and if you have less human players, you can add the nemesis players controlled by the game. You will decide how many decades and how many rounds you will play. You can also choose if you want to play PvP, so you will be able to attack other players, or you don't want to attack other players. It's up to you. But I will show you in a second how it looks like in the scenario book. But basically, here are you track the decade, here you track loyalty, which are the victory points, and upkeep, how much money you have to pay for your kingdom. Here is the skill wheel, where you will track your different skills, might, cunning, and intellect. Those are the skills of your hero, of your house, and they are quite important because advancing on those skills will allow you to perform specific actions and gain some bonuses, so this part is quite important. I said about scenarios and decades and everything, and before you start the game of Ascendancy, you have to choose a scenario from the scenario booklet, and this booklet has got quite a few scenarios. First part of this booklet is the scenario 0, which is a tutorial. The game teaches you how to play, shows you all the mechanics and everything. But after you play the tutorial, you will start with the regular scenarios. And the scenario looks like this. It tells you how many decades you can play, minimum number of players, maximum number of players, what is the objective of the scenario. In some scenarios you can play in teams or you can play free for all. If you decide to play with teams, you can play with hidden teams or visible teams. You can choose a PvP mode where you can attack other players, or no PvP, or only half PvP mode where you cannot attack players but you can attack cities of other players. So a lot of ways to adjust the game. Some scenarios are like this one are competitive, but there are some scenarios that are like this, for example, that are cooperative, and you work with other players to defeat this nemesis, for example, here. And the cooperative scenarios, they have this additional points of interest that you can discover and you can explore, and then you will have some kind of adventure paragraphs that you will read in those episode selection part of the rulebook. So a lot of ways to play the game and a lot of ways to adjust the game to your need, but no matter which option you choose, the game looks, or the basic rules are more or less the same. So we have the map, we have this board here, the trait to track decade, loyalty, upkeep, and these different skills. And here we have the Nemesis board. As I said, Nemesis are the players controlled by the game, but they are really easy to use because they don't use cards, they don't use any resources. They basically occupy different spots in the worker placement part of the game, and they also explore the map. And they are represented by these big miniatures. They move around the map, they explore, they gain loyalty, so they compete with you with victory points. They will build cities, they will upgrade the cities, and they will fight with you. Nemesis don't fight with each other, but they can destroy each other's cities, but they will happily destroy your army and destroy your cities. This is how a Nemesis board looks like, depending on the difficulty. They have start with different workers. If you encounter a Nemesis and you will fight it, you flip this Nemesis board to the other side, and this is how it looks like when you fight them. They have some attack skills and defense skills, their life points, initiative and everything, and you have to fight them and you have to defeat them if you encounter them on the board. And defeating all Nemesis is also a victory condition in a solo game, because if you play multiplayer game, there are regular players in the game, then the victory depends on the scenario. But if you play solo, you can win either by fulfilling the scenario requirement, or you can win by defeating all Nemesis players, because if you play solo and you defeat all Nemesis players, you have no more competition on the board, so you are victorious. The main part for each player is this huge, let me show it, this huge player board, this player tableau, and this is your house that you will play in the game. Here I play as House Valis. They are kind of elvish type, wooden type of house, and there are a lot of things here. I will try to explain them briefly because this game is quite complex and I don't want to go into too many details. Basically, you have 4 columns here. At the top of each column, you have space for your different workers. And workers in the game are divided into outcasts, laborers, loyalists, and lords. The higher the level of the worker, the better, because this higher level workers can perform more different actions in the game. Each column also represents like a advancement element of your kingdom, because in each column you have this stack of cards. Let me show it to you. And those cards, they represent different buildings that you will be able to build with build action. They have their requirements, but they give you some bonuses like loyalty points and upkeep as well. When you build a building with a specific action, you will flip it to the other side. You will place this card on the worker placement board, and you and other players will be able to perform this action. This like additional worker placement action that you can perform. Other players can also use your buildings, but they will have to pay gold to you. But those buildings, they have different different levels. So you have level 0, level 1, level 2 and level 3, and you can build those buildings, and depending on the higher level you have, the better cards you can acquire and the more options you have on the board, because here you have also different technology cards, and those technology cards sometimes are equipment, sometimes they are like passive enhancements, and they give you additional bonuses during the game. So when you unlock different buildings and when you build them, you have access to better technology in the game. Additionally, each time you build a building, you will slide those whole stack up. So if you build commune the first level, you will slide this up, and this will give you additional options. Here you have space for different resource cubes that you will be able to place, blue, green and purple. And if you place a cube here, you will gain different bonuses like those technology cards that I have shown you. Here you can get new champions that will fight for you in the game. You can upgrade workers, you can get new workers. So during the game you will build those buildings, you will upgrade your kingdom. The last column is different because this is empire, and this shows how your empire is developed. And to progress here, you don't spend resources, but you have to you need to have a specific number of renown points, and those points you get by fighting monsters and completing different quests. The more renown you have, the more you can advance your empire. On your board you also have space on the left for your quest cards. Those are the cards that you can get in the game. If you complete the requirement of those cards, you will flip them and they will give you renown points that are required to advance your empire. On the right side of your player board you have space for different technology cards and upgrades and items that you will get during the game. Those cards, as I said, sometimes they have passive abilities, sometimes you have to use workers to trigger them. On the top you have space for your army and for enemies, because the top area of this board is divided into left side and right side, and here you have 1, 2, 3 spots for your army and 1, 2, 3 for army of your opponent. When you gain your champions, you will use them to fight, and champions are like a unique type of combat unit because they have these abilities and they have stamina as well. They can spend stamina points in combat to trigger different types of abilities and attack your enemy. In this game you will be able to fight sometimes other players if you choose PvP mode. If not, in both modes, PvP or not, you always be able to fight different monsters that you will encounter, and this is a monster card. This card has got attack part and resist part. When this monster attacks, they don't use stamina like your champions, but they roll dice, and depending on the dice roll, they trigger a specific attack ability. And if you attack them, they will try to defend, they will roll the defense die, and depending on the result, they will sometimes reduce the damage taken. So monsters are less predictable because they roll dice for attack and for defense. But you not only have to use your champion, you can also use other units, because there is a way to tame a monster, and the tamed monster can fight on your behalf. And if you have a monster, a creature that fights on your side, if it attacks, you will also roll a die instead of stamina from your hero. So you have a champion, you have creatures that you can tame, but you also have mercenaries that you can hire, and you have war machines that you can hire. So a lot of ways to create your army. Your champions fight for free. Other creatures, mercenaries, they need you need to pay something to deploy them. Sometimes it's food, sometimes it's money, so they will not fight for you for free. So we have the map where we move around, we encounter, we discover new tiles, explore, build cities, fight with nemesis and destroy their cities if there is a way. Then we have our player tableau with your player, your house, technology tracks, with quests, with passive abilities, with monsters and with your heroes. Each player also gets a tray like this where you have all the components that you need in the game, like additional components for your cities. You have horses because you have horses in the game, some better horses, some additional workers that you will be able to use, renown points, some damage tokens that you use. But how do you play the game? The game is divided into decades. Each decade is like a round of the game, and each round is divided into basically 4 phases. And this main element of the game is worker placement, because in each phase you will send your workers to different boards, to different trays to trigger different abilities. And we have 4 phases. Each phase has got a dedicated tray with different actions that you can do. First, you have frontier phase, and this phase represents the discovering of new land, of new locations, of creatures. So at the start of each phase, you will be able to send your workers to the locations here. The player with least loyalty starts first, and you can send your workers. In the first spot item, you can get items. You have items that are used for combat. Some items are used for not in combat. You can use them any time during your phase. Here you can scout locations, which means you can reveal the tiles, place them here, and you know what's around you. Here it allows you to reveal a monster, and you take this top card from this monster stack. You have different monsters that you will be able to fight. They give you different rewards, they have different abilities, and you will place this monster that you have revealed on your house board. But it doesn't mean that you have to fight the monster, it only means that you have discovered these monsters somewhere on the outskirts of your kingdom, and by performing other action, the conquer action, you will be able to fight this monster. Here are monsters of the first level, here are monsters of the second level. The second level monsters are of course more dangerous, they will give you better benefits, but they are tougher to be defeated. Here you have the build action that allows you to pay resources and build buildings from your player board, and you will place those buildings here. Here is the standard building at the start of the game, and when you add more buildings, you will place them like this, and they will stack here. And each building gives you more loyalty, gives you some more upkeep, but basically gives you loyalty, which is important because loyalty is like victory points in this game. And patron action means that you can send your worker here, and you can perform the action of any building in this section, either the basic building or the buildings that were created during the game. If you want to use a building from other player, they may require you to pay gold, it's up to them, but maybe you will have to pay gold if they decide so. The thing with this game is that you have, as I said, 4 types of workers. You have outcast, the first level, then laborers, then loyalists, and then lords. And the workers from the first type, outcast, they can only be used in this first phase. When you have laborers, they are type 2 workers, you can use laborers in the first phase and in the second phase, and so on and so on. And if you want to place a higher level worker on a lower phase, it allows you to remove a worker from other player. Let's say that green player is here and wants this item. So when you place workers on this board, if other players decide to use, for example, laborer or loyalist, higher level worker, then can place their worker here, and this worker goes back to the green player. So this is a way to retake worker placement spots. In each phase, first all players decide to place their workers, and when all players pass, then you trigger those action spaces. So frontier phase, you can gain items, you can scout locations, you can reveal monsters, you can build or use different buildings. The second phase in the game is supply phase, and it's the phase that allows you to get different resources. You have food, you have to spend food to move around the map, or you have to use your ore to build different buildings from your house board. You have skill cubes. If you spend them, they allow you to gain might or intellect or cunning, and you have knowledge cubes, the blue one. They allow you to gain technology card from your unlocked house board. The important thing is that, and when you send your workers here, you will gain those resources. But you have to remember that those resources are limited in the game. That means that, for example, if the game starts with 4 food cubes, if they all are taken and used, discarded, there is no food anymore in the game. There are ways to gain food by producing it from maybe some abilities and so on, but you have to remember that those resources are limited. The more players and more rounds overall in the game, the more resources are here, but all the resources are limited. So you can gain food or skill and knowledge, and again, you can build something and you can patron, so use the ability of this building or other buildings created here. Here is also this gold stack. If you gain gold, you take it from here, from the bank. You can also buy resources without sending your worker, but you have to pay gold, and this shows how much you have to pay for each row of resources here. The third phase is academy phase, that looks like this. Here you can send your worker to gain quests. You always take 2 and choose 1. Those quests, as I told you, they can give you renown. That is important to advance your empire. Hireling, you can hire mercenaries from the stack, different mercenaries that you can use in combat, as long as you pay them to deploy. Here you can, from the same action, if you want, you can get a war machine, and war machines are needed if you want to siege, if you want to defeat cities of other players. Here you can get mana stone. It's another resource required for some buildings and sometimes required during combat to trigger special abilities of your champions. Influence, here you can get these purple cubes, and they are required on those technology tracks to level up your workers or to gain new workers. And again, you can patron, use this building, or you can build to add new and more buildings here. And the last action in this last phase each round is Empire phase. And this is for Nemesis players. Here you can send your workers to upgrade your settlement, so add the fence to your city or then add a tower. Here you can send your workers or a horse with your worker to move and adventure, and with this action you can move your avatar around the board, discover some location again. If you send a horse with a worker with your lord or lady, then you can trigger one of those abilities on those location tiles. Here, if you send your worker, you can conquer, and this means you can fight other players if you have chosen PvP mode, or you can fight the monsters that are waiting for you on your house board. And siege means that if you have a war machine, you have to deploy it, and then you can try to destroy other players' cities on the map. If you destroy their cities, they will lose loyalty, but you will gain loyalty by defeating their cities. Here is space for different loot tokens that are on the map, but also you can gain them during the game. Here are different status tokens that can be placed on your unit or enemy units. Here are events that at the end of each round, the crowned player, the player with most loyalty points, will take one of those events, and sometimes they are positive for the crowned player, sometimes not. Here is also space for different champions. If you unlock one of your champions, you can take them from this stack here. And after all four phases, the fourth phase is probably the longest one because it triggers movement on the map, and also it triggers some combat with monsters, with other players, with Nemesis and Zeech. The whole round of the game ends. In the end phase and the decade phase, you will gain income from the tray here. You check how much money you get from your loyalty, and also you will have to check your upkeep. Then you can gain bonuses and perks from this skill wheel. Then you will check who's got most loyalty. These players will get the crown. The crowned player can discard the top cards from any stack in the game. Then the crowned player will take the top event card and resolve it. And then all players go back to your house board and you can start a new decade, a new round of the game. As I said, each scenario gives you different goals and gives you different ways to finish the scenario. Competitive, cooperative, it depends on the scenario. The solo mode in this game basically works the same as the multiplayer game, because if you play solo, you are the only player and you have to add Nemesis to the game. If you play a cooperative scenario, you just have to defeat the Nemesis basically, but if you play a competitive scenario, then you will add more Nemesis. How many depends on the scenario. You can add the minimum number of Nemesis, sometimes 1, sometimes 2, but you can add up to 3. It's basically up to you, but using Nemesis is very easy. Basically, they roll the dice, their dice, and they place their workers on all those phases, boards, and they take up the worker placement spaces for you, so you cannot use them, and they try to score points here. And basically, this is Ascendancy, the basic game, the basic mode. As I said, different scenarios, they can add some additional rules. Some in each game, if you choose to, you can also use some legacy elements, and legacy doesn't mean you will destroy something, but it means that you can get those legacy cards and add them to your house board, and those cards will go with you from game to game. You will be able to unlock those cards, gain some bonuses. A lot of options. This is how the game plays. Let me show you what I think about Ascendancy. A huge, massive game. Now you have an idea how the game plays, so let me tell you what I think about the game, what I like about the game. First, this feels like a 4X sandbox game in which you will explore, expand your kingdom, you will fight with other players, you will get resources, you will discover new locations. So there are different ways to play the game. You can focus on different aspects of the game. You can fight with monsters, or you can focus on doing quests. Cool game with a lot of ways to play it. In every game, there are so many options that you are limited with resources and number of rounds. So you have 4 different houses, and each of the houses plays differently. So a lot of ways to explore this game. I like that this game contains a lot of cool mechanics and ideas. I like the worker placement here, that you have your workers, but they have different level. You have better workers, worse workers. You can place them in different locations. You can remove workers from other players. So this dividing the game into 4 phases is really cool. I like combat in this game that reminds me, just like the rulebook says, of old school JRPG games that you see your fighters and opponents from the side. They stand in different columns and they fight with each other. So the combat is really cool. I really love the development of your kingdom, the technology tracks that you unlock, different technology cards, different buildings that you will place on the board. This is really interesting. Another thing is that I really love the fact that you can adjust this game to your preferences. You can play a PvP game or without PvP. You can play longer game, shorter game. You can play a game where everyone is fighting with each other, or you can play in teams. You can even play a cooperative game, and you can play a solo game. This is cool because depending on the player count and depending on the players, how advanced they are, what type of games they are, you can adjust the game to your needs and preferences, and this is really nice. You have different scenarios, and this is nice. Different scenarios give you different goals, different cars. Sometimes you have like hidden agendas and hidden roles, and you have cooperative scenarios which add some story elements to it. So different scenarios, which is nice. One of the scenarios is the tutorial, and this works really well, and this is a great way to learn the game. Of course, you will have to read the rulebook that contains over 100 pages, but by playing the tutorial scenario, you will already know a lot of things and understand the flow of the game. So then learning the game from the rulebook is much easier. The production quality of this game is amazing with all those trays, and they speed up the game really by a lot. When you set up the game, you take all those trays, you place them on the table, you play inside those trays. So when you finish the game, you close the lids, you put them back in the base, in the game box. Your house board has got also a lid. So the storage is amazing, and the trays are really great, and this speeds up setting the game up. I have problem with huge games without any storage solutions. When you have a huge game with this Z-bags, and the setup takes forever, and here it's really cool and convenient. The game looks great as well, because those trays looks nice. You have nice artwork, nice components, cool miniatures in the deluxe all-in edition of the game. Even the meeples look nice, and you have in the base game you have this cool acrylic stand-ins. When you place the game on the table, it looks really cool. At least for me, I love the look of the game. The Automa, the Nemesis players are really easy to run and to maintain. If you play solo, you don't waste a lot of time using Nemesis, and this is nice, because I also don't like games that have this complex Automa system where you spend half of the playtime running Automa players. In this game it's really fast. They basically occupy different worker placement locations, and then in the last phase they move somewhere on the map. Okay, sometimes when you encounter them and you have to fight them, it takes a little longer, but basically it's really well designed. And I love the fact that this is a game created with passion by the author Matthew Meeple. I think this is his first game, if I'm not mistaken. And you can feel that this is his biggest project. In the rulebook he says he worked for many years on this game. He has got a lot of ideas, and this is cool because you don't feel that some elements are taken away from this game. Because I have a feeling that sometimes when modern games are made and they are made for profit, for big audience, some things are streamlined or taken away because maybe the creators think that, okay, maybe if I add too many ideas or if I make the game too complex, some people may not like it. Here, this is the dream game created by Matthew. This is how he developed this game, how he designed this game. Every idea that he had is in this game. There are a lot of ideas and a lot of things are going on here, but this is a passion project, and I admire games that are created from passion. And this is also what crowdfunding is for. The original idea for crowdfunding, this game was crowdfunded on GameFound or Kickstarter, I don't remember now. But the idea of crowdfunding, for me at least, is that independent indie developers and creators can make their dreams come true and create games like Ascendancy. And there are some things that I not necessarily like in this game, like the learning curve is very steep in this game. There are a lot of rules, there is this rule book with many different rules. Okay, you've got this tutorial scenario, but still you have to learn a lot. And when you open the box and look at all the rules and components and the rule book, you will think, oh my god, what have I done? After playing this game for a few times, it got smoother and it plays better. But still, even after a few plays, I have to check the rulebook quite often. There are a lot of small things that you have to remember, but here you have to pay something, and something here gives you more upkeep, and this gives you more loyalty, and a lot of actions, a lot of things. They have quite a lot of different icons and symbols. And when you play this game, you have to be focused all the time and try to track everything. Sometimes it's quite a lot. Another thing is that sometimes I have problems with loyalty in this game, and mostly with tracking loyalty, because loyalty in this game works kind of like victory points, but you don't only gain loyalty, but you can also lose loyalty. some actions that you can take. Sometimes when you lose a settlement on the map, you will have to lower your loyalty. In some cases, you will have to raise your loyalty. For example, you get loyalty points for adjacent tiles on the map. So if other player places a tile near your settlement, maybe you will have to add additional points to your loyalty. So keeping track of all this loyalty is sometimes complicated, because in some games when you gain victory points, you gain them and that's it. But here you can either gain or lose them during the game, so you have to think about it constantly. And the last thing is that this game is a table hog. It's a huge game. I play solo mostly, so for me it's not a problem, but still, even for a solo gamer, this game takes half of my table, even more. You have all those big trays and your house board and the map and the cards and everything. If you want to play with 4 players, this will take the whole table. It looks great, production quality is great, but this is a huge game. For some people, this may be a con, especially if you have smaller table to play your games on. What I think about Ascendancy? I think this is a great game. I had a lot of fun in this game, and I have this fantasy strategy 4X games that I really love in my collection: Dwellings of Eldervale and Uprising: The Curse of Last Emperor. Dwellings is not a 4X game, but they all like these fantasy games in which you explore, you expand, you fight some monsters, fight some enemies, you build your tableau, you have this amazing fantasy complex games, and Ascendancy joins Dwellings and Uprising in my collection as another complex but great, enjoyable and fun, huge fantasy game. I enjoy this game so much. I like playing it solo, but this is a game that I can play solo, I can play with other players. Depending who comes to visit me, I can play a co-op game or I can play a competitive game. A lot of ways to adjust this game. If I have less time, I can play a short game with less decades. If I have more time, I can play an epic 8 decades long game and play for, 4 or 5 hours. Great game. It will stay in my collection for sure, especially that this year Matthew is planning another GameFound campaign with an expansion for this game. You will have more factions, more houses, more ways to play the game. I think that you'll be able to play this game up to 6 players with this new expansion. I'm really curious about this additional content for this game. I'm not sure if Ascendancy, this edition here, is available. Probably not anymore. I'm not 100% sure, but probably during the new GameFound campaign you'll be able to get the new content and the old content as well. So I will leave a link to the GameFound preview page in the description of this video. If you like this type of games, you should definitely check out Ascendancy. No matter if you get the all-in deluxe game or even the base game. Even the base game here looks amazing. It has got all those trays and components and beautiful acrylic standees. So even the base game looks great. So get this game no matter which version. It's so nice and so cool. Click the like button if you like this video. Subscribe to my channel. I would be very happy. You can visit me on different social media platforms. All the links are in the description of the video as well. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye.